Hello everybody and welcome back for some weekly VR news. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. This week we have an excellent lineup of new VR game releases, massive hardware sales have already begun and we haven't even hit Black Friday yet, and finally we need to do a deep dive on the Steam Frame because it's a much more significant device than I ever imagined. Now there are of course some links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, today's video is brought to you by Globular Cluster and their magnetic facial interfaces for the Meta Quest 3. Now, over the years, I've tried an excessive amount of comfort accessories, and until now, I was yet to recommend any type of facial insert. Previously, I'd try a facial insert that everyone recommends, just to find out that it's made from silicone and I don't like the feel of that on my face. Or then someone else recommends another one and it feels good, but it covers my nose, which I don't like. It adds extra pressure. I don't like nose cover, which is something people love. Well, Globular Cluster figured it out. They said, yes, a lot of this is subjective. We can't make one that suits everyone. Instead, in this package, you have every option out there. So not only have they managed to solve all the issues I've had with previous facial inserts, they're also made with 3 separate types of materials, making it the ideal comfort purchase for anyone. Now, if you're thinking, why should I have to buy all 3? Well, it's the easiest way to find out which material you like. Then you have 2 more for your buddies. Nothing's worse than someone sweating up your headset. So now, right before they play, you could just give them your spare. Problem solved. So go check out Globular Cluster at the link in the description. Okay, I'm going to keep the check-in as brief as possible. This is the segment where I tell you what I've been working on in the VR industry. And you guys know, it's just crazy season. What a week we just had. I should take a moment to say I was right. I told you we'd hear about the Steam Deck before the end of the year, but obviously a million people said that. But so many people told me I was wrong on so many things. So, And guys, let's just, have some fun, cover some games, and enjoy the rest of 2025. So let's move into this week's new releases. Starting with Battlemarked, an official Dungeons & Dragons tabletop game that I've been waiting for ever since it was announced. Coming from Resolution Games, this is a mashup of their previous tabletop game Demio and the latest edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Now, I previously covered the demo and talked about how it's more 75% Demio and 25% D&D, but it should be an excellent option if you're interested in either of those titles. Now, I'm currently in a little conundrum for which game I'm going to cover this week, so let me know if you guys want that to be Battlemarked or the next title on today's list, Roboquest. This beloved flat-screen roguelike shooter is finally making its way into VR thanks to Flat the VR Studios. Now, I've previously covered this game throughout multiple stages of its development, and it's always looked excellent, so unless something goes extremely sideways, I'm expecting a very solid title. And speaking of solid titles, Iron Guard Salvation is coming to SteamVR this week. This is the second title in their Tower Defense series, and they're bringing much more than just additional content. There's now additional strategy elements, command heroes that you'll take control of, each with their own special abilities, which is good because you'll be facing off against some brand new enemies, and there's also a series of new mechanics and gameplay modes to enjoy. So if there's any VR Tower Defense fans out there, I highly recommend you check out Iron Guard Salvation, and to make matters even easier, there's currently a demo available on Steam. Now, next up, we have a game that actually surprise dropped last week, and it was one of the titles that I mentioned I was sitting on and couldn't talk about just yet. Vampire Survivor was originally a flat screen title that released back in 2022 and has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. My first thought was, why port this game? How can VR actually make it better? But the truth is, a good game is a good game, and I'm happy to see a whole new audience will have access to this title. Honestly, a flat bullet hell title does sound like a nice change of pace compared to other VR games that have me soaked in sweat after 20 minutes. Now, next up, we have yet another port, but this is actually for one of VR's OG greats, making its way onto the PlayStation VR 2. That's right, Richie's Plank experience is still very much alive and kicking. So now, PlayStation VR 2 owners can also get an ample dose of acrophobia. Now, like normal when we get a PlayStation VR 2 port, we can usually expect enhanced graphics and some new features. So I'm ready to jump back in, or rather jump back off of Richie's Plank. Giggity. And last up, before we move into today's main topic, we're also getting the full single player campaign for Thrill of the Fight 2 this week. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the series, Thrill of the Fight was an amazing old school boxing title that had the whole community begging for multiplayer. Fast forward a few years, and we got the early access for Thrill of the Fight 2, which launched in multiplayer mode only. Now, that experience currently has mixed reviews, but from a technical standpoint, there are some night and day improvements from the original game, so I'm expecting the single player campaign will do quite well. And now let's get to today's main story, the fact that Valve has learned to count to 3. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, guys. I only care about the Steam frame. The Steam machine looks really cool, controller looks cool, but Steam frame all day. And let's break into it, because some people are saying they're disappointed, and I think other people don't realize that this is actually a game changer. It goes way further than I expected based on software. But for those who haven't looked into it yet, let me quickly break down the hardware and software with this nearly perfect image I found on Reddit. I'm going to stay on point as much as possible here, and starting with the biggest complaints. You got the LCD panel and the 2160 by 2160 resolution, which honestly are not issues for me at all. I understand the concession, and I don't even really think they're concessions. You don't need to go much higher than 2160 by 2160, especially when it's not price effective. Do you want the headset to be $2,000 like a big screen or a Pimax? No, no one's going to buy it. So that right there, gone. That is out of the question. 4K per eye, no. LCD, well, you need LCD if you're going to be working with those pancake lenses, and I will take pancake over Fresnel any day, or any of the other options I've tried in the past. So LCD is a great concession. I'm fine with it, especially if it's a high quality LCD. We know the blacks weren't great on the index, but I thought the visual quality was fantastic. Plus, we're getting up to 144 hertz. Now, there are some more niche complaints, like there's no 3.5 millimeter jack. I can understand, there's only a 2.0 wired connection if you want to wire this to your PC. We'll get back to that. And potentially leaky audio. The audio, I don't care. I have no friends or family that's around ever. USB 2.0, yeah, this is not meant to be a wired headset. This is a standalone headset. They give you a dongle, and I really think Wi-Fi 6E is going to be perfect, especially when you combine it with their foveated streaming, if it works as they're explaining. I'm honestly expecting you're going to look at these specs and say, mid. Use the device and go, holy crap. That's my expectation. Now, when we move into the good side, we are going so much further positive than the negatives. As long as Valve doesn't kill us with the price, if it's like 800 or lower, I think this thing is absolutely incredible. This is a standalone machine that will play your regular Steam games. It also plays PC VR games, Steam VR games. Now, it's going to be debatable what can run, but just think anything that runs on the Quest, you should be able to run on this and better, because it's using even better hardware. It's got double the RAM. It didn't go with the XR2 Gen 2 Plus chip. No, they went with the Snapdragon 8 chip, which is a lot more raw horsepower. It's not designed to handle the 50 million cameras and all that type of tracking and pass-through. And maybe that's the reason why pass-through is more neglected on this headset. I can't say for sure, but I want a gaming headset. I'm not looking for a pass-through headset. But the bigger deals, this is also a very nicely weighted headset. Like I said, 120 hertz. You have an SD card slot, which is huge. We were scared it wasn't going to work great in the Steam Deck. I put a terabyte one in mine, a cheap one too, and it works perfectly. The games don't load like crappy. It doesn't take much longer than your normal hard drive. It's actually incredible how far hard drives of that size or SD cards have come. But the aspect that goes way further than I ever expected is the fact that we now have a brand new VR operating system, which is SteamOS, and the ability to run native SteamVR games that were built for x86 architecture on ARM hardware. This is crazy. Their previous compatibility layer, Proton, allowed you to play native Windows x86 games on Linux, which is what SteamOS is, with nothing. With pretty much no changes. The developer doesn't have to do anything. Some of these games were never even recompiled for Linux. and they work with Proton, which is absolutely insane. And I know some people are saying, well, it's emulation's going to be crappy. I've tested my Steam Deck with both Windows and SteamOS on it, and I get better performance with SteamOS on the same games. So there you go, guys. So you could call it emulation, but I have high expectations for how these games are going to run. So I can understand how some people feel disappointed, as we're not getting insane resolution micro OLED displays, and they're also not even working on any first-party VR games. But I honestly can't think of a bigger thing that Valve could have done for the overall VR industry. Now, if you agree or disagree with me, I'd love to hear it down in the comments, but that was today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and as always, I'll see you guys on next time.